wilderness of pain, and all the children are insane. All the children are insane, waiting for the summer rain. Yeah. There's danger on the edge of town. Ride the King's Highway.
More apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, pretty much the end of the month here. We have got a lot to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to put you on the air with your comments, questions, and opinions. So getting right on into it. First of all, today is Smedley Butler's birthday. And for those who don't know who that is, Major General Smedley Butler was a Marine Corps general, and he's famous for two things. First of all, for writing the essay, War is a Racket. And if you have not read it, you need to hunt that down on the internet, because he just laid it out straight. I mean, for his entire career, he followed orders, he did everything right, he got promoted, and after he retired, he sat down and said, this is what's really been going on. Now, the second thing that Smedley Butler is famous for, of course, is the attempted coup by the Wall Street bankers against Franklin Roosevelt. And they approached Smedley Butler, who was one of the most highly respected officers in the military, to try and get him to say, yes, I'll get the military to come on board supporting you against Roosevelt. And Smedley Butler pretended to go along with them until he accumulated enough evidence where he went to Congress and blew the whistle. Congress actually classified the whole affair. You know, Roosevelt was furious, of course. He wanted to start throwing the bankers in the jail, and the bankers just said, hey, you know, you touch one of us, we'll wreck your New Deal economy and blame you for it. So the whole thing kind of had to say. Of course, Roosevelt got them on the opening days of World War II. He got them for the Trading with the Enemies Act. And eventually the whole story was declassified sometime in the 70s. The film 8 Days in May is based on this real-life incident, except the character based on Smedley Butler is made out to be the bad guy, and the role played by the bankers is left out. So somebody pulled some strings on that one. So here in Hawaii, as if we didn't have enough to deal with trying to get ready for this move, we have Hurricane Eric headed this way. The winds are at the core are now over 100 miles per hour. It's formed an eye wall. This one is drifting to the south. It's going to make life very rough on the Big Island. Is not expected to do much more than some wind and rain up here on Oahu. But following along behind it is Tropical Storm Flossie, which is expected to strengthen to a hurricane sometime later today. That one, its predicted course track comes a lot closer to the northern islands. Now, the good news is, of course, because we're getting ready to move, all the stuff that was out on our back lanai, it's gone. All the plants are gone. I mean, there's some stuff, out there waiting to be packed up, but I can bring that in. So we're not going to have to worry about all of that stuff. All right. Getting on back to this thing where Donald Trump has ignited a firestorm, or at least a major distraction, talking about Baltimore and how terrible its living conditions are. And the Democrats are out there saying, no, it's fine. It's like living in Disneyland. Because what they don't want happening is for somebody to say, well, the Democrats have been in charge of Baltimore for a lot of years, and look how messed up the place is. That would lead them to say, look, the Democrats have been charged in these other cities that are all messed up. And the Democrats don't want that. So what are they out there doing? They're screaming, you're being racist. When you say that, Baltimore is a mess, you're just being racist. There's nothing else to it. And ultimately, I think it might lose votes for the Democrats next year, because even Democratic voters, there is a certain point at which to say, oh, come on, people. Baltimore is one of the most deprived cities in the U.S. President Trump knows it. Bernie Sanders knows it. Most importantly, the voters who live there know it. So answering Trump's criticism by shouting you're being racist, it's bad politics. Baltimore has the second highest murder rate in the nation, behind St. Louis, Missouri. In a city of 600,000 people, over 300 people will have been shot by the end of the year for the 5th year running. If it were a country, it would be one of the 3 deadliest in the world. More than a fifth of Baltimore citizens live in poverty. Its trash problem has been covered in hundreds of local articles dating back decades. While the rat infestation is so bad, it received its own recent documentary on PBS, which used it as a metaphor for general urban decay. So there is a problem over there. And the Democrats don't want to fix it, don't have the money to fix it. They're spending too much money making sure that the restrooms are transgender. So they're out there saying, just believe it's a wonderful place and it shall be. And somebody put up this map from the Baltimore city government about requests for rat control. They do have a rat control department. Apparently, they're seriously understaffed and underfunded, but it does show it is a problem all over the city. Okay, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And President Trump gave $16 billion, with a B, dollars in 2018 to Elijah Cummings District in federal grants. And so Donald Trump's aide, Lynn Patton, is saying, what did Baltimore do with this money? Those federal grants were to try and help the city. Doesn't look like it actually happened here. But let's not pick just on Baltimore, because large American cities have a huge rat problem. Because dealing with the rats, dealing with the poverty, dealing with homelessness just isn't a priority with our current generation of politicians. They're all about continuing the wars and serving Almighty Israel, and of course making themselves rich along the way here. But it is a mess there. Now here in Hawaii, of course, there have been rats ever since the first Polynesian voyagers settled here. The rats snuck in on the canoes. And but there's a good rat control program. And in fact, in all the years that we have lived here, and it's a lot of years now, I only ever had to deal with the rats myself, and that was when we lived over on the Kaneohe side. And I just put out a couple of rat traps, boom, boom, that was it. End of story here. So apparently Baltimore comes in at number 9 out of 50 on an annual list of America's rattiest cities compiled by Pest Control Service Orkin. Baltimore has a pest problem no matter how you slice it. And apparently there was this documentary, Rat Film, that aired on PBS. And that's one of the problems with liberals and the Democrats. They don't want to deal with reality. They have this fantasy. Baltimore is controlled by the Democrats. It must be a wonderful place. How could it be otherwise? And it almost reminds me of the movie Tomorrowland, much of which was shot at this amazing science and engineering and art park out in Valencia, Spain. And when the girl is, holding the coin, it's beautiful. It looks absolutely amazing. And then when she finally actually physically gets there, the place is a wreck. Time to wake up. Anyway. All right. People are still talking about the Robert Mueller hearing and how it was a humiliating disaster. Not just by critics of the establishment Russia narrative, but by mainstream Democratic pundits. Mueller came across as looking befuddled and disorganized. A lot of people, including Alan Dershowitz, were saying it's obvious he didn't write that report himself. So, hopefully, progressives will have learned from Russiagate that you can't live in that fantasy world, because that again is a part of it. When Hillary Clinton lost the election in 2016, they came up with this fantasy that Russia had stolen the election, and they just moved right on in, and that became their new reality. That's a very dangerous situation. But there is an aspect of all of this that needs to be addressed. Okay? Now that this whole idea that Russia interfered with our elections and colluded with Donald Trump has been completely discredited, it's time to drop the sanctions against Russia. Remember, when all of this cranked on up, there were all these sanctions that were put on Russia. Sanction this, sanction that. The United States arm-twisted Europe into going along with the sanctions, which harmed Europe's economy. Okay, no reason to keep it going. It's time to call up Vladimir Putin and say, our bad, we made a mistake, we're removing the sanctions. Anyway, this whole Russiagate situation, it's a total faceplant for the Democrats. The story is basically over. It's time to end the sanctions on Russia. All right, we're still waiting to hear something directly from Jeffrey Epstein over how it is he wound up in a fetal position on the bottom of his cell with marks on his neck. Now, the story they're trying to sell officially is that he attempted his own suicide, or faked an attempted suicide to try and to get into nicer accommodations. I'm not sure I go for that one. A fetal position is a defensive position. And the police are actually talking to a suspect they think may have attempted to murder him but couldn't finish up the job here. But a lawyer, Spencer Kuvin, who's a lawyer for one of Epstein's victims, fears there has been a contract put out on Epstein's life that he will be murdered before his trial because they don't want him talking about who was involved in the sex trafficking of girls and young women. So Kuvin doubts Epstein's recently sustained jail injuries were a suicide attempt, and there may be some very powerful people who just don't want him to talk. And even if Epstein is kept away from the general prison population, which he is, and even if he's under suicide watch, where he is, ultimately people with that kind of power, they can walk through the front door of that prison, kill him, and walk right back on out, and nobody is going to say boo. All right, we've got a caller waiting here on the line, Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I've spent a lot of time in Baltimore. I was stationed there on 2 ships. I actually went to school in Baltimore. And, Baltimore is like most main big cities on the East Coast in that they have areas that are really rough and bad, kind of ghettos. New York has it too.
Yes.
But Baltimore is actually a pretty good city. I mean, around the Inner Harbor, around the water, it's a great, working class city. They have these, townhouse type cities where there's a bar in every corner.
Yes.
The food's really good. I mean, you got to watch where you're going. Now, the problem with Baltimore is since Pelosi's father, who was raised in Little Italy and connected to the mob, took the city over, and the corrupt Democrats. Now, back in the 80s, they got a really good mayor, Mayor Schaefer, who was in there for, 8 or 12 years, and he really turned Baltimore around. But the race politics has kind of taken over in Baltimore, and basically Trump is right to call not the racial aspect of it, but to criticize Elijah Cummings. And they've had the last 2 mayors had to step down because of corruption.
Yes.
I mean, the corruption is the reason. Baltimore at one time was kind of like the Silicon Valley of this country back during the railroad days. I mean, that's where they were building railroads.
Yes.
And it was really an advanced technological city. And it's really because of the Democrats and the racial issues that the city has become a bit of a dump. And it's a shame because it's a beautiful city. It's a great place to eat and party. And, for a sailor in a carousing town, I always loved being in Baltimore. But, one time I went down to see Edgar Allan Poe's house, and there was a box, and I opened up the box, and there was a dead dog in it. Because it's a bad part of the town, and they don't pick up the garbage there. And I thought, well, how fitting in front of Edgar Allan Poe's house for something like that to happen. But meanwhile, once again, if you've ever spent any time in Baltimore, I still recommend it. The Inner Harbor, they have a great nautical museum, and they have some boats down there. They have the constellations there. They have a great aquarium, and the Inner Harbor is a great spot. And you got Fells Point. You got some really good happening play. A lot of people come down there on the weekends, like the college girls and stuff, and people from outside, and they party in Baltimore, and then they leave because there's, a lot of the West Baltimore and parts of East Baltimore have gotten so ghettoed that it's unsafe. Baltimore's got a great football team, great stadiums. Camden Yards is a beautiful baseball place, but they see a baseball game. So, it's such a shame to see the city because of a corruption which started with Miss Pelosi. And that's why I think Trump is smart in this aspect, because it calls attention to Pelosi and her family and her connections to Baltimore. And now her, the same genetic pool that slowly destroyed, the corruption destroyed Baltimore is now over there in San Francisco, where the people crap in the streets. And slowly, even a beautiful city like San Francisco can become destroyed by their mismanagement.
Yes.
And it really is a shame. You got to wonder, because so many people that live in the cities, especially like richer and educated whites, they're all like lefties and socialists. And it's kind of like, can't they see with their own eyes what this is bringing about to their own neighborhoods? It amazes me that they live in such a state of willful ignorance that they can't address it. And even when they're stepping in the human excrement, they just can't, it doesn't wake them up. I don't know. I guess what Michael Savage says, that liberalism is a mental disorder, is probably true, because how else can you explain that? And, all right, call Trump a racist, but parts of Baltimore are infested with rats, and they are ghettos, and they're places you wouldn't want your kids to grow up. But the schools,
well, it's not just the ghettos. I mean, out in Los Angeles, the rats are infesting City Hall, and that's hardly a rough part of the city. But listen, real quick before we hit the commercial break and I have to let you go, I actually had somebody who emailed in and wanted to ask you a question, which is, first of all, what general area of Tennessee are you in?
I live about 30 miles east of Knoxville. I'm
Okay.
kind of above where Pigeon Forge is, about 20 miles north of Pigeon Forge. Right off 81, where 81 starts.
Yeah.
About 5 miles north of 81.
Well,
I got like 40 acres, and I live out in the woods. But you know, the beauty of where I live is I can get everywhere in like 5 or 10 minutes.
well, the person who wrote this email wanted me to ask you, do you have a problem with illegal immigrants in your part of Tennessee? Because apparently they're looking to move roughly where you are.
No, but every once in a while, like I'll run into somebody, and you know, I've been to Africa a lot, and I can spot Africans for some reason. I'm friendly to them, but I mean, I've been seeing a couple here and there, which surprises me. And once in a while, I see a couple people with like Syrians or Arabs with their gear on at Walmart. But I don't really. I mean, it's still. I mean, I've got my new neighbor is Italian guy from Long Island, New York. So we're getting a lot of people coming here from New York, and you know, kind of tax refugees are starting to show up because Tennessee has no state income tax, and it's still actually a pretty cheap place to live as far as you know, utilities and taxes and state taxes and all that. So you know, Eastern Tennessee is a beautiful place to live. I'm really happy I moved here. And part of the reason I did move here was the demographics. You know, I'd lived in Norfolk, and I had enough of the crime and the ghetto bullshit. You know, excuse my French.
Yeah. Please don't curse on this radio. Anyway, listen, thank you for the information, right. Joe. We're going to let you go, and we've got more callers waiting on the line. We'll be right back.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, @hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Art off the grid. Aloha, Art. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I want to talk about the Trump Elijah Cummings spat for a moment, but just real quick on Jeffrey Epstein. I think I mentioned this before, but I've been to jail. I've been to prison. In a jail, and even in many prisons nowadays, it is virtually impossible to hang yourself. You leave nothing to chance anymore. Okay, I know this for a fact. It's not like it's a one-time rodeo for me. I've done it a couple different times, and I've been in some of the more modern-day jails and prisons, and believe me, it is virtually impossible. And if he had tried to hang himself, he would have had something still around his neck. And again, like you said, the fetal position is a defensive position. So I've been on the farm long enough. I know what it smells like when I step in it.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Now, you grew up on the farm too, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm a farm kid.
So you and me both. So anyway, with Elijah Cummings, there was this interesting video, and I found it on theconservativeopinion.com, and it's actually 2 videos. And from what I can tell, these are Twitter videos of a woman, doesn't give her last name, but her name Michelle. She's a black Baltimore resident who agrees with Donald Trump. And in the first video, she says that Trump was definitely true and Cummings hasn't done anything for us. He's worried more about caring for illegal aliens at the border than he is his own people. And in the second video, she says that Trump is not a racist. She's glad that he put Cummings on the blast. The rats didn't just come here. These houses just didn't get tore down. It's been like this for a while. Okay, well, there's one problem here. And here's where I run into conflict with people like Michelle. Not to take away from her frustration, don't get me wrong. But she begins right off the bat complaining how Elijah Cummings hasn't done anything for us. He hasn't provided us with any free cookouts, no free shoe giveaways, no free clothing giveaways. She begins with complaining how he hasn't done anything with these cookouts and shoe giveaways and free clothing giveaways and all of this. Now, I don't want to take away from her frustration. I get it. You're frustrated. I get that. But if you're going to complain about your local, state, and federal representatives, you don't begin by complaining about what free stuff you didn't get. Okay? Yes, he's been a 30-year failure. I get that. I'm with you on that. But if you're upset with him, the only 3 excuses you gave for being upset was you didn't get a cookout, you didn't get free shoes, and you didn't get free clothing? I mean, serious? That alone, right there, negates every argument that you put forward from that point on. And she didn't really give nothing about what really is going on. What are you really upset about? The only things was no cookouts, no free shoes, no free clothes. That's what you're worried about? What you sound like is you sound like a welfare baby who isn't happy with what you got. And this is what I hear from people regularly. I don't hear them talking about the real issues. I hear them, people, Democrats, and I hate to say this, primarily blacks, all they complain about is what they did not get.
Okay, well, let's take a
real
moment here.
issues.
Let's take a moment here to pause and understand that the Democrats have campaigned, again, primarily into the black community, with promises of free stuff. And over the years, off and on, they've delivered, and this has built up a level of expectancy in the population. To them, it's perfectly normal that you're supposed to get free stuff. And so she's out there saying, I didn't get my free stuff, not understanding that for the rest of us who were not promised free stuff, who don't get free stuff, it does sound a little bit like a crybaby.
Yeah, it does. And so, I just want to put this out there for those of you who might be listening. When you hear these kind of arguments, you need to point this stuff out to these people because their arguments fall flat. If this is their only argument, it falls flat. If they really want any sway or any influence on what we think or how we perceive their complaints, they need to be focused a little bit more on the issues and not what free stuff they didn't get. I'm 56 years old, and I have been on my own, more or less, since I was 15. I have done it all on my own with no help from nobody. Nobody gave me an Obama phone. Nobody gave me a welfare check every month. I was homeless for a little over 30 years of my life, working my butt off day after day after day after day after day, and people, well, you're not getting anywhere. Well, maybe according to you I wasn't getting anywhere, but now I live on a little piece of land out in the country that I own, lock, stock, and barrel.
Okay, well, Art, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with another caller after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. Airoutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to Airoutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at Airoutfitting.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way. Can't draw no
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Michelle in Baltimore. Aloha, Michelle. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Michelle, are you there? Michelle maybe not in Baltimore, but wants to talk about Baltimore. Okay, looks like we lost Michelle. Okay. I thought that was two callers. All right, so the phone lines are open. 800-313-9443. Getting on back to the news here, we were just finishing up with Jeff Epstein. And as that one other caller said, the idea that he tried to commit suicide or fake a suicide, prisons are designed to prevent that. And there would have been something still around his neck. The fetal position doesn't go with it. Yeah, I think it was an attempted hit on him. And I find it amazing that we are hearing nothing from Epstein's own lawyers. They may be out there screaming from the rafters, but the corporate media is going to ignore them. So Alan Dershowitz, who is rumored to be tangled up in all of this, actually wrote an op-ed calling for a lower age of sexual consent. He's drawn a lot of flack for it, so now he's on the defensive and out there and saying, really, the age of sexual consent should not be as high as 17 or 16. And there are arguments on both sides, but the fact of the matter is that if the age of consent has been set by the law, by the legislature at a certain age, and you dally with a young lady who's younger than that, that is statutory rape. And you don't engage in sex with underage children and then come back and say, well, you know, really, the age of sexual consent should have been lower all along. That's like when Hillary lost in 2016 and saying, well, you know, really, we should have gotten rid of the Electoral College all along and gone with a popular vote. All right, we're going to take another phone call. Jim in Illinois. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I have to agree with Joe. I've been to Baltimore several times, and down by the harbor and the downtown area is really nice. But then there are neighborhoods where it's kind of rough and very ghetto-ish. Like I live in Chicago by the lakefront, and other parts of the city are really nice. Then you go maybe a mile or two outside of the downtown area, and, you know, you take your life in your own hands. Yes. And I think most cities are like this, where you have a good part thanks to the developers, and then you have the other parts of the city where that's being neglected. And I think part of it is due to the Democratic policies, and they take people for granted, and they aren't willing to help the people that really live there, who really need some help.
Well, you also have the problem of neighborhood creep, which is that the bad communities are enlarging and starting to chip away at the good communities and sort of taint them. And I actually went through this myself when I first moved to North Hollywood. And that was back when, I was working on a movie. And I moved into this apartment complex, which at that time was considered part of the good section of North Hollywood. And I lived there for quite a few years. And over that time that I lived there, you could just see, when I first moved in, the bad part of town was 3 blocks to the east, then it was 2 blocks, then it was 1 block, then it was across the street, and then it sort of enveloped us like the blob. And it finally reached a point where there, in our complex, our apartment complex, there was a shotgun killing in an argument over a parking space, which is when I moved out and moved into the new, nicer section of town and lived there for a while. But I could see it happening again. The bad part of town was getting closer and closer.
Right, right. The other thing, as far as like communities, you know, if you look at the states in the South, especially in the Deep South, and you have states like West Virginia and Kentucky, you talk about poverty-stricken, and most of those states are run by Republicans, and they always vote red. So I don't think it's naturally a Democratic or Republican thing. It's just basically the leaders who neglect their community. I mean, look at Mitch McConnell. Kentucky is one of the poorest states in the nation.
Well, I understand that, and I understand that if the industry and agriculture in your state is performing poorly, the government doesn't really have much to work with. But we're talking about cities like Los Angeles, which has the movie industry, San Francisco, which has got high tech, and still somehow all of that money is not being allowed to reach down to the people who most need it.
But you have to ask yourself, why is that happening?
Corruption, greed.
Right, and that's what's happening in Chicago also. The money's not there because they either they kept it for themselves or they gave it to other people. But most people in Chicago, they're being ran out because of either high taxes or the crime rate.
Yep.
But again, I live in Chicago. I'm not going anywhere. I love Chicago. So, all right, Michael, you take care.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. And yeah, corruption in government is a big problem. Nobody wants to talk about it, certainly not in the corporate media. Right now here in Hawaii, apparently, I think right now we're holding the record for the most ongoing corruption investigations in the entire country. And some of it is settling on that light rail system, which is billions over budget, years behind schedule, no sign of it ever working. And now there's this big fight over, we demand an audit. Where did all the money go? So I think the bigger government gets, the more corrupt it gets. And it's another argument against the New World Order. Because a single global government, a single one world government would be the most corrupt in history, would make Rome under Caligula look like community service center. All right, the American Center for Law and Justice has managed to obtain the Justice Department's immunity agreement with Hillary Clinton's lawyers. Now, we all knew that those agreements existed, but the ACLJ got the actual texts, and it showed that Hillary Clinton's lawyers were allowed to, quote, dispose of evidence and refuse to comply with federal law, end quote. And these immunity agreements were drawn up for Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson. And there were 2 separate agreements. First of all, Mills and Samuelson were granted immunity from prosecution under multiple felony statutes for anything found on their laptops. The second agreement showed that the Department of Justice and the FBI agreed to evade Freedom of Information Act and to dispose of the culling laptops. That was a cover-up from top to bottom. The Clintons are among the untouchables. We're living under a caste system, and the top caste are the untouchables. So, now Ilhan Omar is dealing with a couple of issues, and let's see, skip back up on here. Apparently she now has a challenger for her seat for next year, and the challenger is Chris Kelly, who is a celebrated Iraq War veteran. He collected 11 military medals, and he's spent more than 36,000 hours patrolling the Minnesota streets as a 20-year veteran of the Minneapolis Police Force. And now he has declared himself as a candidate. He's aiming at knocking Omar from her seat, representing Minnesota's 5th congressional district in 2020. He sounds very credible to me. And given some of the idiocies that have come out of Omar's mouth, I think he's going to do it. So Omar better enjoy her time in office because it will be short and sweet. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard has drawn a lot of flack. The House of Representatives recently had a vote condemning the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Tulsi Gabbard voted in favor of it and immediately drew a huge amount of criticism. And now she's trying to defend it, saying that her vote was a defense of free speech and that she still believes in the two-state solution. Well, Tulsi, I'm sorry, you kind of lost me on that one. I thought we had a real candidate in this race. We do not. And tonight, of course, is the second round of Democratic debates, and I don't think Tulsi made the cut. She didn't get enough donations. Now, Rashida Tlaib is in big trouble because it has turned out that on her election affidavit, when she declared to run for the 12th House District, she used her father's address in Detroit to say that she was a resident. Didn't even tell her father. He just now found out, and he is very, very angry. And basically she lied. Tlaib lives in Dearborn, in her house with her husband and boy, and Dearborn is not a part of the 12th House District that Tlaib was elected to represent. Okay, California's got some of the strictest gun laws in the nation. But hey, let's seize the opportunity. In the wake of the Gilroy shooting, Democrats want more gun laws. We want to ban everything. We've got to take it away here. By the way, the Gilroy Garlic Festival was a gun-free zone, and more than a few people have come on out and said, had I been allowed to carry my gun, we would have dropped this guy even before the police got there. And CNN interviewed Brendan Gorsh, father and Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting witness, who had said if he was armed, he probably could have stopped the shooter. Now, of course, that's not what CNN wanted to hear, and they tried to sort of steamroller over him. But Gorsh managed to get in. I was close enough. I could have ran him over. If I didn't have my daughters, I probably would have. If I'd had a gun, I probably could have ended it right there. I felt helpless. I was angry and I felt helpless. And a lot of the attendees of the festivals are saying, why are we not allowed to be armed? We could have stopped the shooter faster than the police did. So, police still don't have a confirmed motive. They don't know if the kid was a patsy, if he was set up by the now unacknowledged accomplice. We don't know if he was on prescription antidepressants. The police are speculating that he was driven to do this by this 1890s racist manifesto called Might is Right or Survival of the Fittest. But it's been pointed out, Might is Right is drastically misogynistic and Anglo-supremacist, but it doesn't find its philosophical root on the right. Now, a lot of people are still going back and forth over the fact that the media is saying assault weapon, assault weapon, assault weapon. And it is not so. The specific weapon that this kid bought over in Nevada is an SKS, which stands for Self-Loading Semenov Carbine. This is a semi-automatic rifle developed in the Soviet Union during World War II, years before the AK-47 came along. It does not use the AK's iconic curved magazine. It relies on these disposable clips that hold up to 10 rounds each. If the shooter fired 30 or 40 bullets, as claimed, he would have had to reload 3 or 4 times. The only similarities between the weapons are the original muzzle brake of the SKS that was copied by the AK, and both use the 7.62 caliber ammunition, which is mandated by treaty. It's designed to wound but not kill. So conflating the two is down on the same level as the infamous chainsaw bayonet put forward by the corporate media following the Texas church shooting in 2017. Now, millions of these SKS rifles were produced by the Soviet Union, several Eastern European countries, China, North Korea, and Vietnam. The BATF classify the SKS carbines as curios and relics, allowing them to be legally sold here in the United States of America. It was not an AK-47. It was not an AR-15. Getting into the international news, Iran has released a video of a confrontation with a British warship, which is just chugging on through the Straits of Hormuz, saying, "We have a right to be here. We're escorting a commercial vessel." Well, they weren't very close to the commercial vessel, and they did seem to be pushing the bounds of exactly where that international waterway is. But a couple of the Iranian coastal patrol vessels came on out and drove around it, and they were shouting at each other over their bullhorns. That was, fortunately, as far as it got. But it's a very tense atmosphere, and all it's going to take is one hothead, just one hothead, to really stir things up and create this mess, which unfortunately so many people seem to want. Now, earlier, both Germany and British officials said they did not support the U.S. maximum pressure strategy against Tehran, instead welcoming an operation proposed by London for a European-led security effort to protect the commercial vessels operating in the Persian Gulf. Well, as of today, the United States has officially requested Germany, France, and Britain to join its military mission in the Gulf to, quote, combat Iranian aggression, end quote. So, more warships into the Gulf, and the attitude that we're the good guys, they're the bad guys. And we know our Navy, they get very arrogant, even when accidents are their fault. We saw that with these two warships colliding with commercial vessels out here in the Pacific a while back. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org. and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we can't.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And Mike Pompeo is starting to talk about maybe traveling to Tehran and talking with their government. I'm not sure he's the best person to do it. Yes, I know he's Secretary of State, but he's also an Iranophobic, warmongering extremist. And I imagine that he'd show up in Tehran and say, okay, you do what we tell you to do, and we'll start pulling some of the sanctions off. And that would mean ending your nuclear weapons program, at which point the Iranians would say, we don't have a nuclear weapons program. And Mike Pompeo would say, well, if you're going to lie to me, then the deal is off. But he does have a very malign intent toward Iran. Now, unfortunately, what's becoming very obvious is that right now, longstanding bipartisan U.S. policy wants to transfer the Islamic Republic into another U.S. vassal state in order to gain control over the vast oil and gas reserves. So that's what it's all about. It's not about glory. It's not about bringing democracy. It's not about, freeing people from an evil dictator. It's about the bankers. It's about the oil. It's about the opium. Now, Russia and Iran are planning a joint naval exercise scheduled within the next year, and it will take place by March of 2020 in the Indian Ocean and will be staged as far north as the strategic and increasingly tense Strait of Hormuz. So they're going to be rattling their sabers out there. Meanwhile, over in Iran, their foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, says the foreign ministry will not compromise on the country's territorial integrity with anybody, including with regard to Iran's territorial waters. Now, Zarif made the remarks while addressing an open session of the Iranian parliament yesterday with regard to the Caspian Sea legal regime and Iran's share of the seabed and its resources. So Zarif said, when it comes to Iran's territorial integrity and waters, we will stand on ceremony with nobody and will not negotiate with any party about honors Iran has gained during the past 40 years. In other words, don't try and butter us up with a lot of sweet talk. We're talking about our territorial waters. Apparently, the Yemeni army succeeded in launching several drones against an airbase in southwestern Saudi Arabia after the kingdom and its allies killed more than a dozen people in northern Yemen. So yesterday, Army spokesman Yahya Saree was quoted by the Al Masra TV network as saying that the aircraft had stricken the King Khalid Air Base in the kingdom's Asir region. Okay, we got to take a break for station identification. We'll be back after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And somebody just wrote in to tell me that Tulsi Gabbard will, in fact, be part of the second night of the Democratic debate. So she is going to be on the stage here. But again, with this whole issue over BDS, I've lost all confidence in her. And I really liked her. I liked her anti-war stance. But then, you know, we have candidates who go into office promising to end the war. Remember back in 2008, Bill Clinton was, not Bill Clinton, I'm sorry, Barack Obama was out there saying, you know, when I'm elected president, I will end these wars. I'll bring our kids home. You can take that to the bag. And everybody cheered for him and they voted him into office. And, you know, I was happy he won because I didn't like his opponent. But frankly, I'm a little sick and tired of choosing the lesser of two evils. And I got to tell you, maybe it's because I'm an old guy now, or maybe it's because the campaigns seem to run year-round now. But I'm on campaign burnout. I just don't care anymore. And no, I'm not planning on watching the debates. I got packing to do. And I refuse to get excited about any candidates going into next year. You know, I thought Tulsi might be for real, but no. I mean, to vote against BDS and claim it's a matter of free speech, Tulsi's just another politician. I'm sorry. Okay, let me close that down here. So, getting on back to the international news. We were talking about how Yemen has launched several drones into the King Khalid Air Base inside Saudi Arabia. So I think the Yemenites are proving to be a lot tougher than Saudi Arabia thought when they got roped into this mess. And if I were Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, I'd be looking for an exit strategy, the way the U.S. is up in Afghanistan. We can't win this one. Let's find a way to declare victory and go home. But so far, it looks like it's going to continue for a while. Former U.S. diplomat Michael Springman says the United States continues to support Saudi Arabia in its war on Yemen, despite the humanitarian catastrophe there. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right. Over at the United Nations, Secretary General Antonio Guterres put out a report, his so-called list of shame of countries that are maltreating their own populations. And somehow Israel just did not get onto the list. Guterres didn't want to embarrass Israel for all the 2,800 Palestinian children killed and maimed in 2018. Don't want to talk about it. Would embarrass Israel. When was the last time you saw an Israeli actually get embarrassed about anything? They can't get that smirk off their face. I'm trying to figure out why so many people support Israel in this kind of behavior. And I think it is a visceral thrill by proxy. These are leaders of countries that have strict controls on the abuse of their own population. But they'd like to be, the leaders would like to be doing what Israel is doing, just for the thrill of it all. And so they're encouraging and supporting and protecting Israel's assaults against the Palestinians, so they can sort of experience it secondhand, what it would be like to have that kind of power, life and death. Then, of course, on top of that, there's the blackmail, there's the bribes, the political contributions, what have you, that Israel uses to impose its will on other politicians. But the reality is that with all criticism of Israel crushed, Israel can just enjoy its impunity and unleash new waves of brutality against the Palestinians. Down in Turkey, Erdogan is saying, whoever is on Israel's side, we're against. And Erdogan has condemned Israel and its enabling allies, meaning primarily the United States, over the state terror being committed in Palestine, and says we do not approve of silence on the state terror that Israel blatantly carries out in Palestine. Venezuela has announced that they are ready for a potential invasion. And Venezuelan Socialist Party Vice President Diosdado Cabello on Saturday said that U.S. Marines would likely invade the country. It's entirely possible. It would be dumb, but it would be possible. Interestingly enough, well, first of all, let's do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Interestingly enough, there's an article over in Army Times about how the Army needs thousands more infantrymen by spring. They've got a major recruiting shortfall. They're offering these huge retention bonuses and signing bonuses. You know, that's a lot of money, and they still can't keep the ranks full. So they're out there saying that they need to find a way to get thousands more infantrymen, and they're specifying by next spring. Now, I don't recall how long Army basic training is. I think it's something like 6 to 8 weeks. But it looks like they're up against a timeline. They're up against a deadline, rather. Interestingly enough, over on Twitter, hashtag Clinton body count is trending. And I noticed on my server, a lot of people were looking at that. And, of course, the establishment is saying, oh, it's Russian bots. Nobody's really interested in the dead bodies around the Clinton career. This is just being kicked up by Russian bots. And, of course, the Clinton body count is all about Vincent Foster, which launched my inadvertent career into being a truth activist. And they talk about Seth Rich. Meanwhile, over at the Pentagon, they have approved $1.48 trillion with a T in military spending. If you are in the business of making stuff that kills people or supporting the killing of people, good times are here. Let the good times roll. Going to be money falling all over you here. As for the rest of us, well, maybe not so much. Retail investors are turning bearish despite record stock prices. And I've noticed over the last few days, the gains have stopped. It's plateaued. Are we at the edge of a cliff here? So over at the Guggenheim, Scott Minerd's basically saying stocks could crash as much as 50% in the next recession. So he's very, very nervous about that. And he should be. Okay. The United States Treasury now expects to borrow over $800 billion with a B in debt over the next 2 quarters. And it's ridiculous. They're borrowing it and spending it faster than you could ever pay it back. And yet they're out there screaming, you've got to pay your taxes. You've got to pay your taxes. There's a national debt out there. Well, you know something? I never agreed to that national debt. In fact, for most of the younger people around here, that debt was created before they were even born. And so we have a government that is coming up to young people and say, you must work and give us the proceeds from your work. We don't have to give you anything back, but we're going to take that money and give it to the bankers. Now, when somebody is working and they're not allowed to keep the benefit of that work, I think that's a good definition of slavery. Okay. Global debt has hit $246 trillion with a T dollars. That's 320% of the global gross domestic product. Now, all of this, of course, is inevitable when you have so many nations that are involved with these private central banks. Because these private central banks, by design, produce more debt than money with which to pay that debt. And so the debt goes up and up and up. And over time, the real assets, the real wealth of the nation and its people winds up in the pockets of the bankers, what they politely call privatization. So it's not you. It's not even the evil corporations. The banking system is designed to drown us all to debt and to use awareness of that debt to enslave us. As long as we believe that debt represents something real, we'll do what they tell us to do. But I want you to stop and think about that something. The debt they're talking about, it never really existed. It's all just ink and paper and numbers in a computer. The interest part of the debt never existed at all in any form. It's just an entry in a bookkeeping system. Modern banking is not a science, it's a religion. And like all other religions, you are raised from birth to say, oh, yes, this is the way it's supposed to be. You will believe that this is the way it's supposed to be. Okay. Apparently, along with Deutsche Bank, Citigroup is in trouble. They're preparing to cut hundreds of traders. Their revenues have tumbled, and they're also investing more in automated trading systems. And so, yeah, let's let the robots take over our economy here. Over at Lyft, their chief operating officer, John McNeil, has unexpectedly left the company. And Lyft is having so much trouble retaining a chief operating officer that the company has said it's not going to hire a replacement for McNeil. The company has been struggling to keep top lieutenants in past years, with McNeil's predecessor, former Amazon executive Rex Tibbins, lasting less than 3 years. Well, I don't know. What are you paying? I could use a new job. Over in Iran, Bitcoin mania has settled in, and the Iranian Parliament Commission on the Economy has recently approved cryptocurrency mining in the country as a way of trying to bypass the U.S. sanctions. So the governor of the Central Bank of Iran, Abdul Nasser Hamadi, said a mechanism to mine digital coins has been approved by the government's Economic Commission and will later be put to the discussion at a cabinet meeting. So apparently even some of the country's top ayatollahs have been publicly discussing cryptocurrencies. What's that line from the original Star Wars? The more you tighten your fingers, the more systems will slip through. That's what's happening here. Over at Victoria's Secret, they're not doing very well. They've had to close quite a few of their stores. It's worse now with the entanglement being made public between Jeff Epstein and Leslie Wexner. But the other problem is that Victoria's Secret's, shall we say, image has come into conflict with the hashtag #MeToo world. Sexy is no longer in. You know, everybody is so afraid of being touched or fondled or groped or stroked or raped that apparently schlumpy is the new look. So Victoria's Secret may soon be going away. We've been talking about this horrible African swine fever over in China that has just wiped out domestic pork production. Half of China's pigs have died or been euthanized. And it's expected China's pork prices will hit a record high by the fourth quarter of this year. And imports of pork are surging. So we're going to see food shortages very soon. And not just the pork, but we know that the corn and wheat production in this country is well below normal because of the flooding. We know that it's dangerous to eat fish out of the Pacific Ocean because of Fukushima. It's dangerous to eat fish out of the Gulf of Mexico because of the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Right now, one of the biggest problems we're facing is there isn't enough safe, healthy food to feed the human race. And that may be one reason why governments are just bending over backward to allow food corporations to employ more synthetic ingredients in their products. Fillers. We're heading into the world of Soylent Green. It's another science fiction movie, stars Charlton Heston. If you haven't seen that one, you need to. It's a classic. Absolute classic. Turning on over to Boeing, they're starting to get threats from some of their customers. Ryanair is out there saying that Boeing better get their stuff together. And, you know, the budget carriers, they're dealing with lost revenue. They don't have enough airplanes to fly their routes. They're having to cancel flights, and it's lowered their revenue. Now, Ryanair has 135 of the 737 MAX models on order, the first 5 of which are due for delivery in the fall. But they will not be able to fly the jets until regulators have declared them safe. And after that embarrassment about how the FAA was basically letting Boeing do their own certification, I think you can count on the FAA being really serious about this job and making sure it really works. Article out of Investment Watch blog talking, again, this is another reinforcement. The problem with Boeing has been this trend of aggressive outsourcing of jobs away from Seattle's skilled but unionized workers to save money. And this led to the problems with the 787. Some of the problems they've had was certainly with the MAX. I mean, obvious design deficiencies there. And Jim McNerney apparently was Boeing's president and CEO from 2005 to 2015, was chairman from 2005 to 2016. He's considered corporate royalty, but apparently his entire attitude toward Boeing was, you know, cheaper is better. And unfortunately, the aviation public is paying the price. We'll be right back after these few words.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, Republic Broadcasting needs you. We need you to reach down into that pocket for those last few coins, that leftover change from last night's pizza, and we need you to send it on in if we're going to stay on the air. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can do a debit or credit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during normal business hours, extension 3 at all other times. So we're constantly being told the economy is great, Trump's got the economy on track, and everything's wonderful, and the stock market is up, and not really. There's a story over in Fox Business News saying that nearly half of the millennial generation are still having to get monthly money from their parents to get by. Now, the millennials, also known as Generation Y, are defined as people born between the years of 1981 and 1996. Obviously, that does not apply to me. And they are poised to become the largest living generation in America. But looking at how they're being raised, how they're being brainwashed, that's a frightening, frightening concept. The other day we were talking about how foreign buyers, mainly from China, were starting to get out of the American housing market, and now we're seeing it spread to other parts of the countries. Right now, New Jersey residents are fleeing their state in droves thanks to the overtaxation and immense financial burden placed on them by their socialist state government, in addition to the already sky-high federal tax that we're all forced to pay. So people in New Jersey are struggling just to get by, which of course is ultimately what the money junkies want. You know, work as hard as you can, take a little bit to keep yourselves and your family alive, and send the rest to us. So I was, obviously we've been talking to a lot of people about our move to Indiana, and it's not like I want to leave Hawaii. I think it's a very beautiful place. I can't imagine I'm going to get to see very many hula girls in Indiana. But it's just not practical anymore. And we've met a lot of people who are saying the same thing. Hawaii's population is actually in decline right now. And we're also dealing with a situation where foreigners who were investing in the higher end properties here on Oahu, that is starting to taper off. So the middle class is being taxed out of existence. And again, that's by design. Because every tyranny that has arisen in history, they get rid of the middle class because it is from the middle class that opposition to anarchy, opposition to oligarchy arises. That was certainly true in the French Revolution, certainly true in the American Revolution. The Soviet Union designed a system which simply didn't have a middle class. You were all proletariat except for the rulers who were insanely rich and powerful. Apparently over at CNN, they're now on the attack against wayward white boys, and they have declared America is now a brown country. And then they wonder why their ratings are down there. Okay, over in Ireland, the Minister for Agriculture, Michael Creed, has announced an emergency Brexit aid package for Irish beef farmers worth 100 million euros. And the support package will be made up of funds from the European Union and the Exchequer. And basically the idea is it's expected that Brexit is going to disrupt the beef market. And so there will be subsidies for these Irish beef farmers, basically 40 euros. And there's a cap on how many per herd. It's not a huge amount, but it's a little bit. I think it's largely more symbolic than anything else. But I do wish they'd get it over. I don't know about you. I'm Brexited out. It's like, come on, guys. Let's just get it done with it. Just seems to drag on and drag on and drag on, and I'm getting burned out on that as well. You know, come on, people, make it happen. I'm not getting any younger over here. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat, very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons. like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. Airoutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. Airoutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to Airoutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. There's been an interesting development in the Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 story. Pardon me. And apparently, there was this German private investigator, Josef Resch, who had some new material on the case, and the Dutch investigators, who were supposed to be impartial, refused to accept it and did not include it in their presentation in the case last month. And according to the investigator, his material was rejected by the Dutch-led joint investigative team after he asked to make it public. And Resch said his materials included important new information, including audio recordings about air traffic in the area on the day of the incident, recordings of the communications of Ukrainian servicemen, recordings related to Russian President Vladimir Putin's flight from Brazil to Moscow on the day of the crash, along with personal recordings of pilots about the incidents and other evidence. Now, if you'll remember, my pet theory is that Vladimir Putin has a presidential jet. It is certainly not as grandiose as the American president's jet. It is a passenger jet that has been customized and repainted. And the livery, the painting on the outside of Putin's jet is very, very similar to the livery used by Malaysian Airlines. And I think the idea was they were going to shoot him down and assassinate him, get him out of the way. And the pilot shot the wrong aircraft down. And there was that one ground technician at this airfield that when the fighter jet landed with one missile missing from its rail, the pilot got out and said, I got the wrong plane. And of course, oh, no. You're a tinfoil hat wearing kook if you even listen to such things here. All right, let's take a phone call now from Steve Elkins. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
You know, that's an excellent theory. I think that holds some credibility, the assassination attempt on Putin. I thought the same thing. Take him out. He's an enemy to this country, and the CIA works that way, to take out leaders when they can. So I think that one's a very good theory. Now, a question I have, we got a country right now focused on Trump's tweets of 4 women and Elijah Cummings all being racial, which they're not. It's pretty sad at this point in time when we are unable to evaluate the performance of anybody of color or lack of performance of anybody with color without being called a racist. It's pretty sad.
Yeah,
that I can't call out somebody's poor performance.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it disincentivizes achievement and accomplishment. And it's another sign of the decline of this country, where, we are being told we have to accept, reduced performance by non-whites because otherwise we're just being racist. There was a story that we ran on the webpage, whatreallyhappened.com. Apparently, somebody did a survey and discovered that quite a few of the drivers, delivery drivers for food that bring the food to your home, will actually nibble at it while they're driving to your house. And as of that point, I'm never calling a home delivery food place ever again.
Well, with all these things, these diversion stories, right now with Trump and the tweets and everything, I guess the question I have for you is, whatever happened to all those ICE raids we were told about, the millions of illegals who were to be rounded up, deported? I said it was nonsense from the get-go, impossible, and Trump came out looking pretty ridiculous on this one.
Yes.
I guess I give you a question, give you a scenario. Have you ever kicked an ant mound? And if you ever kicked an ant mound, you'll see that the ants scatter everywhere. It's hard to track even one single ant in that ant mound. So same applies to illegals, especially when you tip them off in a tweet that you're coming for them. I thought that was really a stupid thing to do.
I absolutely agree. It was a very dumb thing to do. And yeah, the story has vanished. I think there was a total of something like 35 arrests of people who are going to get deported. That's nothing. That's microscopic when you consider that according to MIT and Yale, there are something like 26 million illegal immigrants in this country, all getting ready to vote Democratic next year. And Trump doesn't seem to really care about the fact that one factor alone could cost him the election.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open. Okay, over at Capital One, you've probably already seen this story. And apparently there was this former Amazon employee who's transgender, 33 years old, has been arrested for this huge Capital One hack for stealing data from 100 million customers in the US and Canada. And then I have no idea what he, she, it was thinking, boasting about it online. You know, hey, look what I did. And of course, Capital One is out there saying, change your passwords, do this, do that, watch for strange things. You know, Capital One should be on the hook for all damages suffered. Apparently it was their mistake. Now, part of the problem was Capital One rents space on Amazon's cloud servers, which is apparently where this ex-Amazon employee worked. And apparently he was aware of this hole in the system and just ripped off all this data. And with all of this exposure to cybercrime and your personal data, I find it hard to reconcile with this increasing push toward a cashless society. In fact, that was one of the surprising things when Claire and I went off to Kauai to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary last weekend. The number of places who would not take cash at all. We had to go to the plastic. All right, we're going to take another phone call here. This is Rodney in Southern Illinois. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Am I on?
You're on the air.
I'm on. Hey, Mike, Southern Illinois, I'm about 50 miles south of St. Louis. I'm imagining that you're going to be on an equal latitude than I am.
I'm going to be slightly south of you, but certainly a lot north of where I am now.
Okay, well, I wanted to talk about rats because I read a story about the French occupation of a nation years ago. But I wanted to bring up, and I'll do that last, I wanted to bring up what is commonly known in what you're familiar with and what I am familiar with, known as the Indiana banana. It's the pawpaw tree.
Yes.
There is a gentleman, an academic named Jerry McLaughlin, who has studied 3,500 plants and found that the top of the list for the anti-cancer benefits of the plant is the pawpaw tree.
Okay.
Okay. All right. There is also a what is marketed by Merck, the drug company Merck,
yes,
as a canine dog wormer called Fen, F-E-N-B-E-N, fenbendazole, that does the same thing as the pawpaw tree. And I bring this up for the benefit of your audience. Anybody that has cancer or has somebody in their family that has cancer to research those terminologies, this Jerry McLaughlin and the pawpaw tree. Now, back to rats.
Yes.
Story that I read or heard years ago. There was a French, imperialistic, acquisition of a people, and they had a rat problem. And the governor of this province, decided to, hey, well, what are we going to do about the stress? Well, I will put a bounty on rats.
Yes.
I will pay. And yeah, I'm thinking you know the story. I will pay a bounty on tails of rats. And oh boy, it started to work good. They started, having bushels and bushels of rat tails, only to find out that all of a sudden they started seeing in the rat population a bunch of tailless rats. And then, upon further investigation, the indigenous people, they were raising rats out in the country simply to harvest their tails.
Yes.
So this is a classic tale of everything that you subsidize, you're going to get more of.
Yes.
If you subsidize corn, if you subsidize soybeans, I wish you could run with this, I'm glad. I think you know the story, and I just wanted to get those few things out.
Well, yes, I've heard that story before, and I've heard variations on it with regard to other pest animals. But yeah, when the government says, bring me whatever and I'll give you some money for it, the people will contrive a way to come up with more of whatever's being paid for so that they can get more money. And it should not be surprising that rats were being caught, the tails cut off, and the rats were just being let go. Because to go ahead and kill them would be a lot more mess, a lot more risk, and a lot more work. And what this governor should have done was paid the bounty on the rat head. Now, that wouldn't have solved the problem of people breeding the rats out in the wild to have more rat heads, but at least it would have dealt with the issue of the tailless rats.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, Mike, if I'm still with you, is what, I've heard about your electro,
yes,
your concept. But what would you do for the city of Baltimore or any other city that's rat infested? What do you think is the answer?
That's a very good question, and I would have to think about it very carefully. Obviously, a massive investment in rat traps and some additional funding for the pest control departments. But unfortunately, as the city budgets tighten, the pest control budgets are often the first that are cut. We saw that here on Oahu, and as a result, we've had an increase in the mosquito problem during mosquito season. And yeah, it's an issue. It's not going to be solved easily because you're dealing with, this biological population that is growing. And I would be very concerned about putting out poisoned bait because you're going to get animals that are benign and not part of the problem. So
well, here I think is the problem is early in the life of my wife and I and my early children, we lived in a converted train depot. It was a multi occupational building, and we had a roach problem, and it wasn't our fault. We weren't dirty people.
Yeah.
But the neighbors were. And how do you can't you have to starve the problem.
Yes.
And you can do it yourself in your own private residence, but if you live in a big city, you cannot individually starve a roach or a rat problem. And it comes down to human nature, devolves into something that is, less than human. They, people that we consider our fellow human beings are literally not quite above animal level, and that's how they live, and that's what's feeding the problem. So anyhow, early on was my best information, and I hope people take notes. It was very important. It's very valuable. So also you, Mike. So anyhow, all right, thanks. I haven't called in RBN in a couple of years, and thanks for letting me on.
Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go, and the phone lines are open again. So there's this article here over at, again, Investment Watch blog, Why Are Men Going Galt? And I had to be honest, I didn't know what that actually meant. But in context, it's basically saying that more and more young men are choosing not to get involved with marriage, to not get involved with this struggling economy, that they're starting to go bohemian, if you will, and saying no to the rat race and marriage. So we're going to have ourselves another lost generation. And if you want a generation of children to grow up to be contributors, workers in a society, you have to incentivize them. You can't just say, do it because it's the right thing to do. That never really worked. And we have seen these lost generations before. We saw one right after the end of World War I, where all these people had just had it rubbed into their faces. It doesn't matter how hard you work or what you build, it could be blown away tomorrow. Same thing happened again at the close of World War II. And today, what with all the transgenderism and the militant feminism, and again, endless wars all over the place, I can understand why young men might want to say, it's all downside. To get into this preferred or recommended lifestyle, it's all downside. There's no upside for me. So, okay, we're going to start with Dustin in New Jersey. And Dustin, I'm going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Doing okay.
Yeah, the first story I wanted to talk to you about was, I don't know if you mentioned Tesla in Shanghai, China. They're spending like $233 million a year in taxes for the Chinese government, to have the factory.
Yes.
Over there. So that's like a good chunk of tax revenue, huh?
Yep.
And I think Teslas are probably selling more over there, which tells you a lot. Like GM sells more cars over there because obviously they have a bigger population, but also says how their economy is moving along.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we got to take. Yeah, stay on the line. Going to put you on hold. Stay on the line, and we'll be right back after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendivite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendivite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendivite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendivite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store. Talk Right, the conservative app offered by TalkStream Live that caters exclusively to the conservative talk radio community. Here you'll see only talk shows and podcasts from the conservative right, all the big broadcast names and online digital shows in one place. Talk Right makes it easy to find all your favorite conservative talkers with all the upscale features you come to expect from TalkStream Live. Keep up with the fast-paced political world. Download Talk Right today from Google Play or the App Store.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Dustin in New Jersey. And Dustin, just kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I was talking about how, like, Tesla is most likely selling more cars over there than over here. I mean, obviously, China's got a bigger population, but that tells you that they have money to buy those.
Yeah.
They probably are paying cash for those, too. They're probably not, financing or leasing them. They're probably buying them all outright like they do over here, buying the homes, so that tells you, like remember when the GDP numbers came out and they revised it down from 3 to 2.5 or probably at 2 more likely, or 1.8. But China revised theirs down from like 6.9 to 6.2. So if those numbers are true, that's 3 times more than what we're doing.
Yep.
You just can't, you can't compete with those numbers. And they've been doing 6% for years.
Well, that's why Trump threw all those sanctions at them. He's trying to basically impede their economy. Our government can't get our economy back up and running. So the easiest thing to do is to wreck everybody else's economy around the world. And then you can say, hey, we're all equal now. We're doing okay. We're doing just as good as those other countries.
And, I watched the Kaiser report. I listened to you. You can learn a lot from other people, plus yourself. You can learn a lot, and then you just gather the information. Like they're talking about how, when all the manufacturing, for the most part, went to China, manufacturing breeds innovation. And they're innovating like crazy over there.
Yeah.
Like Huawei, so that tells you that we just don't have it anymore, unfortunately.
No, we don't.
And I don't think, and Mike, did you hear, I think you might have mentioned a story about how China built the port in Pakistan.
Yes.
But do you know they're building an air base or a military base over there? And I don't know if you know this, but they're building a city the size of Shenzhen. That's in China.
Yes.
And they're supposedly moving 500,000 Chinese to Pakistan, and the Pakistan people are okay with that.
Well, I mean, without wishing to offend anybody, but the Chinese people, by and large, They're very polite. They're hardworking. They're interesting people. I mean, when I was still living in Los Angeles, I spent a lot of time in Chinatown. And I got to share a stage with Bruce Lee at one point. And I don't have a problem with Chinese people at all. Well, obviously, since my father was from Shanghai. And I'd love to visit China someday. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But yeah, I can understand why the people of Pakistan wouldn't have an issue with that.
And also, like Azerbaijan, they're doing projects there now too. So, you know, we had this two paths we could have took: the right path and the wrong path, and we picked the wrong path.
Are we on the wrong one? Okay,
Yep.
well, listen, we got. Was that goodbye?
Good one. Yep.
All right, talk to you later. We're going to take a break for station identification.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we live in this surveillance state. Pretty much everybody knows it. And apparently already 50% of American adults are already in the FBI's facial recognition database. Now, this article, which came out of PatriotRising.com, is talking about the violations of privacy, which is an issue. They're saying that facial recognition is going to be sold to the American people in the name of fighting illegal immigration. My issue is it's not a reliable technology, that it gets a lot of this wrong. It's falsely identifying innocent people as suspects or guilty. And who knows how many truly guilty people are slipping by without sounding an alarm. We really don't know that. We can't know it. There's no way. But like so much else in the United States of America, it's being put into service before it's really ready, before it's really robust. We've lost our love of perfection. And that was a big part of what drove early American industry, is we made things that worked well, that lasted, that were easy to repair. We invented the concept of interchangeable parts. And Americans were proud that what they made was the best in the world. And they worked very hard to keep that up. Today, it's like nobody really cares. These projects are broken up into little tiny bits, and all these different contractors get their little bit. There's nothing to feel pride about. So they do the minimum that they need to meet the contract requirements, and they send it all back. Systems integration puts it together, and it winds up not really working all that well. And they say, well, close enough. We need this out there. We need it out there now. I'm sure there'll be a software patch to fix this somewhere down the road. No. Bad idea. Bad idea. A lot of people, a lot of innocent people have been kept off of their flights because of the inaccuracies of the facial recognition technology. All right, we already talked about this briefly, but we're going to recap it again. Capital One has disclosed it suffered a massive data breach impacting 100 million people in the United States and 6 million up in Canada. And the company said in a statement that data between 2005 and 2019 was accessed and related to information on consumers at the time when they applied for the credit card. So this information included personal information that Capital One routinely collects when it processes a credit card application, including names, addresses, zip codes, phone numbers, email addresses, dates of birth, and so forth. And apparently the breach, the individual who's now been arrested, obtained portions of credit card customer data, including customer status, credit scores, credit limits, balances, payment history, contact information, fragments of transaction data from a total of 23 days between during 2016, 2017, and 2018. Now, at this point, they're not saying that anybody's social security numbers have been compromised. But I think this is a really good reason to just get away from the plastic and go back to cash. But like I said, even out here in Hawaii, we're starting to see this push about, oh, no, we can't accept cash here. It's got to be plastic only. So the banks get a piece of the action. You order a pizza, at your home, and they swipe your card. And it's like the bankers get an anchovy or two. Okay, over at the Pacific Games, weightlifter Laurel Hubbard won the gold medal. And because Laurel is a transgender, born biologically male, and hey, now I'm a woman, I can compete in the women's group. Well, now there's a New Zealand women's group demanding sports authorities put a stop to this as being unfair. They are absolutely correct. Now, this Hubbard used to compete in the men's weightlifting, and apparently didn't do all that well. But now that it has transitioned, has won 2 golds and a silver in 3 of the women's heavyweight categories at the Games of Samoa earlier this month. And she got up on the top of that podium ahead of the Samoan runner-up and Commonwealth Games champion Faigaga Stowers, and that just triggered outrage in the Pacific Island nation. And apparently Hubbard is free to compete at next year's Tokyo Olympics. The International Olympic Committee's guidelines say that transgenders can be included. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It is simply not right. It is not fair to those biological females. What a joke. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining the network here. Now, we mentioned this before, but we have a caller on the line. Let's go to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good day to you, Michael. Yeah, Michael, I was wondering if you saw the story about the 2 women in Chicago. They're trying to stop the violence, and they got murdered on the street corner. Have you heard about that?
No, I hadn't.
It's on the news. It was on Breitbart and Drudger. two women were actually going out trying to stop the violence, and they just standing on the corner. They drove by and shot them both dead on the corner. They dropped right next to each other. That was in Chicago.
Yeah.
Talking about Baltimore.
That's the Chicago way.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they had, 11 murdered over the weekend. The last week was 19 or whatever.
Yep.
Every weekend it's over there.
It's a rough town.
It's worse in Honduras and Ecuador, El Salvador put together. El Salvador. In Mexico. But, Michael, the reason I called you also, you got this Mexican president now saying that he ain't going to go along with Trump with this the third country deal. They just want to bring those people through there to flood this whole country. This is a total wipeout.
Yep.
And, everybody calling Trump a racist and all this. Who's the real racist here? Who's that guy? This is unbelievable what's going on with Baltimore. Trump said he gave $16 billion and where's the money at?
Well, they're starting to ask that. What did you do with all the money? Why do you still have rats in the streets? Why haven't you fixed any of this stuff? Where did the money go? Well, it probably went into several people's pockets. It is a time of unbridled corruption right now.
Well, you got two mayors that resigned. Everything that Trump said, he's racist, this and that. It's just unbelievable what's going on here, Michael. This is a never-ending battle that I only see the country, like you say, it's going to spiral out of control. There's no question.
It's going to collapse.
And the Chinese, if Biden does get in there, the Chinese will run ramshot over this country, wipe it out in 2 years. That's my opinion. It'll be gone in 2 years if the Chinese get their way. You notice they don't want to make no trade deal until after probably the election. This is all for naught. Trump came along. He tried to do what he could, I guess, expose a lot of the deep state, filthy, low-life Soros types. Like the Dark Angels are running Hollywood. They're running the whole show in my book. I call them the dark demons. They're not angels. They're demons.
Okay.
And they're controlling Hollywood. And they're controlling the media. Actually, look at the media, Michael. It's totally in the pocket, except One American News. Only one network that you can watch, and they don't even put it on prime time. We'll talk every hour and the hour about immigration, what's costing the taxpayers. It's the only network. Think about it. Fox won't even do that because they're scared out of their wits. Somebody's controlling them. That Mueller thing, Michael, was he never had nothing to do with that whole report. Mueller had nothing to do with that.
It's pretty obvious at this point. Yeah, he was just the front man.
He was just a front man puppet, and one thing I will say that Trump's doing right as far as what you're saying. He don't need to go into Venezuela. He can wait to do that nonsense. He needs to pull out of let Iran do what they're going to do. We need to stay out of all these foreign wars, man. Got to stay out of them. I totally agree on that.
Yeah.
No more foreign wars inventions on our part. Screw that crap. Like you say, Michael, the inner cities of our country are war zones. They're war zones. Detroit. They still bulldoze houses down in Detroit, my friend told me. He went there to visit there a couple months ago. He was at a car show up there. He said the houses are still being bulldozed down with bulldozers. Think about it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chicago, women can't even go out there to try to stop the violence. They get murdered. It's in the, I'm sure I'm surprised you didn't hear about that story.
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, it was on. It's on. I believe it's still on Drudge. I think still got it up. But no, Mike, I'll be honest with you. I think it's a hopeless cause. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think it is. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there talking about time for a violent revolution, get the guillotines and so forth. I'm opposed to that, but on the other hand, if it happens, I wouldn't be too surprised. And I know whose side I would be on.
Exactly. But, and one more thing, Michael, getting back to the wall, supposedly going to be built. Yeah, the Supreme Court had a rule that he can use $2.5 billion. I don't want to ask you this. If he has the right to do that, does he not have the right to bring the military troops up on the border? Bring battalions over there to train them like they're going to train in a desert warfare?
Well, if
do you have an idea for that?
As long as the troops are not used against U.S. citizens, it is not a violation of posse comitatus. And given that what we're dealing with here is literally an invasion of our country, yeah, Trump ought to use his authority as his commander-in-chief and say to the Army, you go down there and you turn those people around, and you kick some butt.
So what's that called again, Michael? Yeah, I heard that before. So I think there's a law that he could actually do that, right?
Yes. In the context, all Trump has to say is this flood of, these people, they represent an invading force into our country. We're being invaded. This is war, and I'm sending the troops down to defend our borders.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And this president of Mexico, this guy wants to ruin it. He wants to wipe out the southern United States. It's all about, you know what this is, Michael? It's all about La Raza. You know who La Raza is?
Yes.
That's what I wish you would talk about a little bit on your show today. A little about what they really want. What's their modus of operandi?
Well, their idea is that Santana's surrender to Sam Houston didn't really carry the force of law. And the document that Santana signed ceding large portions of Mexico to the United States was not legally binding at the time, and they want it returned to Mexico.
Correct. That is absolutely right. Okay, well, listen, you have a nice show, Michael. One more thing. What about you know anything about Eisenhower, what he did back in the 50s?
Yes.
Why can't Trump do the same thing?
I keep asking that, every once in a while. Eisenhower was called Operation Wetback. You imagine how the social justice warriors would scream about that. Eisenhower had less than 10% of the resources of the current Border Patrol, and they just shut it down. And they shut it down by taking a very aggressive, assertive position. They didn't say, come on over, we'll give you some paperwork to fill out, and maybe you can stay and maybe you can't. They'd literally point guns at them and say, no, you go back right now. I still think we ought to put crocodiles in the Rio Grande.
What I read about that operation, Michael, was that 1.8 million were actually deported out of here in 3 years. You try doing that now, they would go nuts, the media. But
Yes.
Eisenhower did it in 1.8 million in 3 years, from 55 to 58, I believe it was.
Yep.
He did it with operation. So, I don't know, Michael. I think the country's over. I tell you, where the cities are going, these inner cities are insane.
And what's really interesting,
stealing all that money.
All these subsequent presidents have enlarged the powers of the presidency, which means Trump has more authority than Eisenhower did. And yet he refuses to use it.
Well, that's political because I think all these groups would team up on him. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I know it's a takeover. That's all it is. It's a massive takeover, and it's all started. The one group has a blueprint for it. You was talking about. They have the blueprint. How they're going to take over the southern United States and stuff.
Yes.
And that's their modus. And look, Michael, like I told you months ago, when I saw Trump not using the federal government's authority to arrest that mayor in Oakland for what she did that day when she told those illegals that ICE was coming,
yep,
I knew right now there's something going on.
Yeah, Trump I believe it's a great opportunity to send a message.
She should have been arrested right then and there. And I don't know who have the authority to do it, FBI or ICE, but she should have been arrested right on the spot when that happened, when they found out.
Clear Title VIII violation.
Now. Oh, by the way, Michael, one more thing, I'll let you go. You heard about Molly Tibbetts' case coming up?
I've heard about it coming up, but not much else.
Did you hear about how much they're going to pay the translator to translate it for the guy that committed the crime?
I imagine it's a huge number.
It can be over $700,000. That was on Drudge the other day, too. Surprised you didn't see that. $700,000 to do the translation for all the paperwork and everything for this trial that's coming up. I believe it's coming up in, I think it's in September. But they're going to, September, October, they're going with the Molly Tibbetts case in Iowa. And it's going to cost $700,000 to do this into like a bilingual. Think about that one. $700,000. the taxpayers will pay.
And,
a woman who was murdered out in a cornfield.
And Google Translate couldn't do it?
I saw that. I saw that as a report on the news.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to let you go here. Thanks an awful lot.
Kate Steinle. Don't forget Kate Steinle. Thank you, Michael.
All right, we're going to let you go and switch over to John in Vancouver Island. And John, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing today?
Hanging in.
Okay, I was wondering if you could give me the current events on what's happened in Fukushima lately, if you were up on that.
Well, I haven't been looking at it too closely, but the last I heard is they have completely run out of places to put all this contaminated water. The water purification plant, they couldn't get that to work. The ice wall isn't working, never did work. And at this point, they're just dumping the stuff into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, well, I live up on Vancouver Island, and me and my wife made a map of the tidal situation, and it just runs right past your island.
Yes.
And then hits the west coast of the United States, and then just pours up and floods right around our island.
Yep.
And it almost makes it to Alaska. And then it comes back, and then it surrounds this island we call Middle Natch.
Yep.
And Middle Natch Island is like Canada's Galapagos Islands. You know, we got creatures there that don't belong there, right? And, but did you hear about the little nuclear accident that they had on the Columbia River?
No, I hadn't heard about that. I know they had one over in Russia a while back that's just now breaking into the news. But I'll tell you what, we're coming up on a commercial break. I'm going to put you on hold. And when we come on back from the break, I want to hear about what happened on the Columbia River. And I assume this has something to do with Hanford. So we'll be right back after these few words.
Hi, this is Matt Ray for MySleepAllNight.com, and most of us don't even realize that almost all of the healing, learning, and rejuvenating that happens in our body happens only when we are deeply asleep. Now, if you have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep, it's likely you never consistently achieve that crucial level of deep sleep. Deep restorative sleep is the key to health, mood, productivity, longevity, memory, you name it. So many health benefits. To experience what deep sleep feels like, try the new dietary supplement Sleep All Night, formulated by scientist Kurt Hendricks. And sleep like your life depends on it because, let's be honest, it does. Head on over to MySleepAllNight.com. That's MySleepAllNight.com. Enter the promo code RADIO for 20% off your purchase. Again, head on over to MySleepAllNight.com. Enter the promo code RADIO. That's MySleepAllNight.com.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with John on Vancouver Island. We're talking about nuclear disasters, whether it's 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl or Fukushima. And apparently they've had another one in the heartland of Russia. The news about that is still coming out. And you're telling me they had something that happened on the Columbia River.
You bet, yeah. The river runs out of the Canadian Rockies down into the States.
Yes.
And they thought it'd be a good place to, the United States thought it'd be a good place to store all their depleted uranium, I guess it would be, for making nuclear bombs.
Yes.
And stuff. And they stored it in some big hillside, right?
Yep.
The hillside collapsed right on top of it. And it's sitting right beside the river. And nobody knows about it. You know? I tried to download it so I could save it and share it. But it disappeared. They wouldn't let me copy it, of the actual pictures of the site.
Yeah.
And it was a mess, and they just made it go away. Now nobody knows about it, and we don't know what's going on underneath that mountain.
No, we really don't. And we don't know what else is inside that mountain besides the depleted uranium. Now, depleted uranium is what's left over after enriching uranium for nuclear reactors and atomic bombs.
Yeah.
But it is still radioactive, and it has a half-life of like billions of years. Are, to your knowledge, are they trying to clean it up?
No, it's all been, nobody knows about it. It's all been hushed up. Nobody wants to say nothing about it. You know, all our starfish up here are dying in the water. It's like, it's really sad. You can actually see the effects of all this radiation and pollution running through the water. And we're really getting slammed hard. So, yeah, I just thought I'd give you the heads up that there was a nuclear disaster on the Columbia River, and nobody wants to talk about it. So that's about the end of my rant, and I hope you have a great show, and you have a good day.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. And let's see, I'm doing a quick web search here. Of course, when you say Columbia River, everything comes up connected to Hanford, and all these reassurances that the Columbia River's radiation level meets the criteria set by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Well, got my own radiation meter here. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. Jerry in North Carolina. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I called you in 2013 originally and asked you about the Federal Reserve. But I wanted to say something about Joe. You know, a lot of people don't, disagree with him. But I think he's, in my opinion, he's absolutely right. You know what I'm saying? Because what Justin and everybody's saying that Trump is not doing anything, but there's three parts of the government, and Trump's doing everything that he should do to try to or work it out. He's got the Democrats, and what's happening is, what in my opinion, is that there's a deep state, and I salute you because before you had spoke about all these issues that we're going through, but we finally got somebody that's in there that's trying to grind through these issues, and he may be a little bit, unorthodox, but I think that's exactly what we need, and he's doing the best he can. I mean, he's going there, he's going toe to toe like Mike Tyson against all the deep states, and he's rooting them out slowly but surely. He's got rid of the CIA people at the top that's been framing black people and everybody, all these heinous crimes that they lock people up and get them on entrapment and things like that. But I have to agree with Joe. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of information, and I can understand that if a lot of people are not following Q, but you got to entertain two ideas. QAnon, is something you consider, but a lot of things he's been, accurate on. And I think, like I've listened to you, I told you I called in 2013. I listened to you every day for all these years. And, and I'm one of the people that, like Mike, he taught me so much. However, we're at the point where I think, we have to take in considerations that things might be different. And another thing, Mike, last thing, I'm sorry I'm talking so long, but what it is these people, they worship Lucifer. They have their satanic rituals, do as thou wilt, Aleister Crowley, and they're going against that. And I know you're not religious, but these people who are so powerful and run the world, they believe that, and it's been effective for them. So
I disagree with you. First of all, we're going to have to let you go for a commercial break, and I'll answer on the far side.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to try to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. And recently I started having a nagging bicep pain and I couldn't lift weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend of mine, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in the veins and arteries that may cause blockages. After 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and I'm back in the gym full strength. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com, ANGIOPRIM.com. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim helps promote cardiovascular health. Talk to a trained consultant, or you can call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-8221. That's 877-882-7221. This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here and responding to the previous caller. I know there's this idea that the ultra rich and powerful got to be ultra rich and powerful because they worship Lucifer or Satan or something. That's nonsense. They worship themselves above all others. That's what sociopathy is. And because they are sociopathic, they're willing to do things. They're willing to use other people to hurt them, to just get them out of the way and just ignore them once it's all over. And that's how they get to be rich and powerful. But the rich and powerful do not worship Lucifer. They worship themselves, and sometimes they worship their own money. The portrayal put forward in movies like Eyes Wide Shut, it makes for great fiction. And it's probably a way for people who are not rich and powerful to say, oh, see, they may be rich and powerful, but, you know, will they get it when they go to the dark regions after they die? I personally think that Wolf of Wall Street is a much more accurate depiction of the road to wealth and power. Okay, we have a caller on the line, Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike. You know, I've heard some people touting Tulsi Gabbard. I've been researching her a bit, and don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. You're better off giving your money to RBN or whatreallyhappened.com.
I would move toward the latter one. I donate to whatreallyhappened.com all the time. With Tulsi Gabbard's vote on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, that was it. That was the straw that broke the Tulsi back. And right now, as far as 2020 is concerned, I don't have a horse in this race.
No, neither do I. But yeah, don't even bother. I warn people. She's just another saying great things, right? But you know, and she's associated with Adelson's wife. I was reading. There's a connection there.
I wasn't aware of that.
Sheldon. Yeah. I don't like to plug other networks, but Renegade Broadcasting, June 30th, had a very interesting broadcast about Tulsi and exposing her as a fraud. Yeah, don't waste your money. Another thing I was going to say, you know, it's almost like there's a game being played between what they're now calling the squad.
Yeah.
You know, Omar, AOC versus Trump. And it's almost like it's contrived to drive middle America into Trump's arms and, in effect, into the arms of the neocons around him. So I don't. It's almost like this is, I don't know, the way the media is playing it up. Something phony about it. I don't know. I think they're playing like a game on us. What do you think?
Well, I think it's definitely being used as a distraction. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the world that Americans should be aware of, and they're not. And it's one of the reasons why, prior to starting the move, I've been spending more and more time on the shortwave radio, trying to figure out what's going on. But I think the Squad versus Trump and their Twitter wars are very demeaning to the country. It's certainly not presidential behavior. And for that matter, it's not even member of Congress behavior. We're starting to sound more and more like the British Parliament.
Yes. I mean, frankly, I don't know who's worse. Well, again, Trump, I don't know where his heart is, but I know the people around him, and there's Pence and Bolton and all super neocons.
Yep.
Frankly, I don't know which is worse, the Squad or the neocons surrounding Trump.
Well, I would have to say that the neocons are worse because they have the ability to maneuver Trump into getting us into more wars.
Absolutely. They're an imminent threat. AOC, she's one of 400 other Congress people. 1 out of 400. Now, whatever attention the media gives her, it's a different story. And it seems like Fox particularly. I call Fox the gorgeous women reading neocon war propaganda network.
Good
That's
description.
what they are. They draw you in with beautiful, gorgeous women. And, of course, that sells in advertising. And it gets, guys to watch. And they just read neocon war propaganda. I think Fox is actually more of a danger than the other, quote, liberal networks, because they draw people in. They draw middle America in. And they don't care about it. They're all about war propaganda. What do you think?
Well, they certainly seem to have gone down that path following the recent change of ownership. And right now, to a degree that exceeds even what we saw during the Iraq War, the corporate media is being brought to heel. They're being corralled up. They're being synchronized. So it's the same message no matter where on the dial that you are. The only reason I still look at the corporate media at all is to basically see, what's the major things are going on and what they're lying to us about today.
Yes. But I warn people about Fox because I know so many, in the circles I go, conservative acquaintances. And, oh, no, I don't watch CNN or NBC. I watch Fox. And I warn them. I say, they're lying to you just like the other networks. I said, to me, you're wasting your time there. And then I try to give them sites like yours. And, they just can't believe it.
Well, at least Fox News isn't insulting us all for being the audience. CNN has had several incidents lately where they're literally insulting the people who are watching the channel.
Yes. I just, and perhaps I'm cynical, I think Fox all along has been controlled opposition to drag in middle America, to get them to fight wars for the neocons. And on that note, thanks for taking my call, and I encourage people to give to RBN and whatreallyhappened.com.
Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you for the phone call. And we're going to let you go and get on back to the news here. Now, we touched on this the other day, but this article expands on it a little bit more, and it has to do with Colorado State University. And they have come on out with this language guide. And a lot of people criticized it because it declared that words like America and American, Hispanic, homosexual, Indian, male, female, normal person, straight, and transgendered should all be avoided. This is like 1984 and the beginning of Newspeak. And so the Colorado State University, they're trying to defend themselves and come up with rationalizations for all of this. But they're taking away the words so that we can't discuss the topics, which was the whole theory behind Newspeak in 1984. If there wasn't a word to describe an idea, then people couldn't think the idea. As a side effect, by the way, people who are multilingual, who know more than one language, tend to be a lot sharper because they have more than just one map on which to hang their thoughts about the world. Something to think about as you're looking at the curriculum for the coming school year. Okay, over at Facebook, they've got this animated show, Human Discoveries. It's supposed to be a prehistoric comedy. And their last episode mocked the right to bear arms. It's been called Stupid and Dangerous. And the allegory for gun control starts when Marsh accidentally gets knocked off a cliff because of a distracted elk chasing a butterfly. And after Jane discovers CRP, whatever that means, and saves his life, Marsh tells the story to the group that the elk attacked him, leaving out the fact it was an accident. And it just goes down from there. And of course, they don't actually have guns, but they're talking about knives. We've got to have knife control. Over at YouTube, their ad policy, the term Christian is no longer acceptable in advertising, but apparently Muslim still is. Little bit of a double standard. And that's what really makes it offensive. If you want to ban religious terms from the ads, ban all of them. But if you get selective like that, your bias is definitely showing. Okay. After U.S. Attorney General William Barr called on tech companies to give law enforcement agents access to encrypted apps like WhatsApp and devices like the iPhone, FBI Director Christopher Wray doubled down on the demand. And he came on out and said, just as technology has become a force multiplier for the good guys, it's become a force multiplier for all sorts of bad guys. And he made this comment during a speech at the International Conference on Cybersecurity, which is an FBI-sponsored event held every 18 months in New York. And Wray said, our agents continue to encounter criminals, from street drug dealers to foreign spies, who relish the ability to hide on encrypted devices and inside encrypted messaging platforms. But encryption and technology experts said that law enforcement backdoors in encrypted apps and data would end up being backdoors for everybody else. And in fact, there have been times we've already seen this happen, where the cyber criminals figure out the backdoor left in by law enforcement, and then everybody's a victim. And so these tech experts are saying that this idea of backdoors isn't going to work in the long run anyway, because encryption the police couldn't crack would still be widely available, such as that demonstrated in my article on Rivero challenges the NSA. So Chester Wisnowski, a senior security researcher with digital protection firm Sophos, basically said cryptography can't only work for the good guys and only allow access to authorities more than guns can only allow you to shoot the bad people. That's a very good metaphor. And Chester basically said, we're bar and ready to talk to experts in cryptography, of which the FBI has a few. They would understand they're asking for a rainbow-colored unicorn. So let's talk about the communications. Yes, it has brought a lot of convenience to our lives. I mean, I still remember the days where the telephone was something that sat in the front room. It was connected to the wall with a wire. It had a round dial on the front. And if you could get to it while it was ringing, you get your phone call. And if you didn't, you missed your call and had no idea who called you. And of course, if you were away from home, there was no way you were going to get your calls. And in our case early on, you'd have to listen to the rings. Is it two longs? Two longs and a long, short, long. And you had to wait for the ring tone that was assigned to you because it was a party line. It was like the entire neighborhood was all on extension phones. And yes, the neighbors would listen into the phone calls. You just sort of put up with that here. And, you know, today the cell phones are amazing. But as far as the bad guys are concerned, yeah, they can create encryption apps solely for themselves that the police will not be able to break or possibly even detect. The best way to send messages back and forth are in images using a process called steganography, where the message is embedded in the low order bits of the image. So the police scanning your traffic, they're going to see a picture of a puppy dog go by, and it won't catch their notice. But in the low order bits of the puppy dog is an instruction on where and when to pick up the pakalolo, which is Hawaiian for marijuana. Not that we have to be worried about the cops about that anymore. It's been decriminalized. Okay. Adam Dixon was an engineer at Boeing for 30 years. And he basically said he will never allow himself or his family to fly on a 737 MAX. And he said they were under, he worked on the aircraft development. He said they were under constant pressure to keep costs down. And there was a lack of sufficient resources to do the job properly. The culture was very cost-centered, incredibly pressured. Engineers were given targets to get certain amount of cost out of the airplane. And Adam Dixon said engineers were under pressure to downplay new features on the 737 MAX. He said by classifying them as minor rather than major changes, Boeing would face less scrutiny from the Federal Aviation Administration, and there'd be a lot less paperwork to go through. So the goal was to show those differences were so similar to the previous design, it would not require a major design classification in the certification process. So they were basically hiding stuff. They made major changes to that aircraft and didn't tell the FAA. Okay, got to take a break for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party property, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. We have two stories about our nation's infrastructure. And the first one, well, dam. And I mean the type that holds back the water. It turns out there are 91,000 dams in the United States that have earned a D for safety. Now, back in the 1970s, there were two dam failures, Teton Dam in Idaho and Kelly Barnes in Georgia, that killed 14 and 39 people respectively, and sort of triggered what was called a renaissance in the modern dam safety era. And California was considered one of the nation's leading states in dam safety management, which really didn't seem to mean much because, of course, back in February of 2017, the Oroville Dam nearly collapsed there. And there are a lot of people who are not really sure that it's as good as new. Again, because the money is being spent elsewhere, not where it's needed, where it's wanted, for like wars in Israel. Last week, there were 2 blackouts in New York City. That was followed by a blackout in Washington, D.C. There were 39,000 people without power. They have not been expanding the infrastructure to deal with the growing population. Probably because whoever is in charge of scaling up infrastructure isn't including those 26 million illegal immigrants on their spreadsheet. But there is definitely an issue out there here. This next story is a little scary. We all know about ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which the guy who came up with that phrase shortly before he died, he said, it's a made-up disease. We made it up to sell pills, and they sell a lot of pills for ADHD, but it's about to get worse because apparently there is a new brain device. It's called Monarch that will be used on kids who supposedly have ADHD. So we're getting into the realm of the Borg. It's very scary out there. Over at the DC Metro, they spent $500,000 maintaining a supposedly self-cleaning toilet that hasn't worked since 2017. Supposed to be the self-cleaning toilet. Nope. Can't get it fixed. Said they're just cleaning it the old-fashioned way. That's ridiculous. And finally, of course, I'm sure you're all paying attention to that locust invasion over in Las Vegas, suitably biblical punishment for Sin City. And they're saying it's probably going to last another 2 months. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. He's probably got lots and lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you've learned here, share it with everybody that you know. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. Please, please, please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. And we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.